Are we on? Are we on? I think we're on. Can you hear me? Oh, yes, you can. Hi, everyone. I'm Kara Warner. Very lucky. I work for People magazine, and I get to cover the film industry and the wonderful people who make them. Very happy to be here today with writer, director, producer extraordinaire, Rian Johnson. It sounds like you did not like it, right? Is anyone brave enough to raise their hand to tell me if you figured it out? You knew who did it? Yes.
Nice.
I didn't. I can never figure those things out. I'm wondering how do you plot kind of the unveiling of everything? I like to envision like a Law and Order SVU murder board, where things are going. You have the plot.
Pieces of yarn.
How did you do it? How did you do it?
Yeah, well, and Cara, thank you for doing this, and guys, thank you so much for being here, and thanks for sticking around. And now I apologize for you guys in the front row because I feel like we're literally in your laps right now. Yeah. We'll talk quietly. I love Agatha Christie books, and since I was a kid, that's where all of this comes from, is just wanting to do a whodunit. But I mean, to answer your question, kind of the way that I went about plotting it out, I kind of didn't think about plot first. I kind of thought about story, which is kind of like a slightly different thing. I guess it's more like I was really thinking about okay, could you do something that starts as a whodunit and then kind of turns into a Hitchcock thriller, where it's more about here's someone you care about and they're threatened, and let's all lean forward and see if they can get out of it. And you're not thinking so much about the clue gathering and whodunit part of it. We almost tell the audience don't worry about that. Here's Marta and she's in trouble. Let's see how she gets out of this, and then turn it back into a whodunit at the end and kind of reveal that a whodunit's been hiding underneath the misdirect of the thriller the whole time. So that was kind of the starting point. And then once I had that framework, I started filling it out with plot, and that made it a little easier and more manageable instead of approaching it like a game of Clue, like who done it and what room and all of that.
Right. So you kind of knew going in who had done what, so it was just sort of...
Yeah, and building it around the dramatic structure of what the ride is going to be like for you guys sitting and watching it, as opposed to thinking of it as a crossword puzzle. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you write any of the roles specifically with the people that you ended up working with?
No, except for Noah Segan, who plays Trooper Wagner, who's he was in my first movie, Brick. He's been in all the movies I've done. Yeah, Noah! And he's one of my very best friends, and so it would have been awkward if I didn't write a role from this, but we see each other every day. But other than that, no, I've kind of learned to not write with actors in mind, because you'll just get your heart broken because they won't be available. And so I just wrote with a blank slate, and we put the cast together.
Right. And I think, was Mr. Craig the first person to sign on?
Yeah, Daniel Craig was the first one to sign on. He's the reason the movie got made. And he also, because when he signed on, he had a really brief window before he went to start shooting the next James Bond movie. And so from the moment he said yes, we had 6 weeks until we had to start filming. So we had to get the entire rest of the cast together and prep the whole movie in 6 weeks, which is really, really fast. But I think that actually helped. I think that put because when you ask actors oh yeah, we're shooting sometime next year, what do you think? They're in the back of their minds, or their agents are kind of keeping their options open in case a Marvel movie comes up or something. Whereas now it was literally are you available right now to come to Boston? And Chris Evans lives in Boston, so for him he was a local hire. He could drive to work in the morning.
Does his family come visit the set?
No, they did. And we went over to his house and hung out a few times, for parties and stuff, and that was always fun. But yeah.
Nice. That's so fun. My favorite moment with Daniel Craig's character is that donut hole monologue. I'm just where did that come? When in the process did that come?
Well, I feel if you like whodunits, there's always a point where the detective makes some goofy extended metaphor about the case that makes no sense at all. And I thought it'd be fun to do one of those. And I'd written that. I almost cut it in the script. And I was talking to Daniel, and I was yeah, I don't know about this. It's kind of silly. And he kind of raised an eyebrow and was let me try something with it. And I was okay. And he went on set. I remember just this giddy smile spreading across my face as he attacked that ridiculous hunk of dialogue with the fervor of like a wolf tearing into a deer carcass. And like, it's a horrible analogy. I apologize. That's worse than the donut hole analogy. I'm sorry, but and grosser. So sorry.
He takes his job seriously. That's what you're telling us. I think it's so great. Could you kind of talk about, like, I guess, how everyone else signed on? I mean, I know Jamie Lee Curtis, I follow on Instagram, has been a delight because she obviously loves this movie, and it's so fun to see when actors really love their film and support each other. I mean, what was it like with all the dominoes kind of falling in place?
It was, yeah. I mean, it was like a snowball because once Daniel was on, everyone wants to work with Daniel, and then Michael Shannon was the next one to sign on, and everyone wants to work with Michael Shannon, and then LaKeith signed on, and it was like a snowball going down the hill. I think actors attracted actors. Jamie was awesome. She's amazing, and she's so good, and she's also so incredibly cool. She has like an alpha nerd energy. She's the first one on set every day. She's early to every single day. She would just hang out on set even when she wasn't needed. She's in scenes in the movie that she wasn't supposed to be in just because she was there. And I got nervous and confused and just put her in the scene. She's the best. She's amazing.
I heard that she was like actually using the kitchen.
Oh yeah,
so we were shooting the props.
Yeah, we were shooting in this real house that a family lived in, and so I mean they knew we were shooting there. We didn't sneak in, but the rest of the cast would like go down in the basement where there was this funky little rec room, and they would all hang out down there. Jamie, from day one, set up shop in the kitchen with the homeowner. And every morning it got to the point where she would come in and she, put her yogurt in the fridge and she would sit down with the homeowner and they would make coffee. And by the end of the shoot, they were baking cookies together. And it was just like Jamie's kitchen, basically. Yeah.
So fun. Bringing up the house, which I think is such a great additional character. Not that we need more characters, but it's fantastic. Were there any sort of happy surprises? I mean, obviously, the location managers found it and everything, but are there some little happy surprises that you would have never expected that kind of enhanced?
Well, I mean, just finding the house was the biggest surprise. I mean, we were looking for the murder mystery mansion of the mind, and then we saw a picture of that house, and we were just like, oh my God, that's it. That's why we went to Massachusetts in the middle of winter to shoot, is because of that house, and it was worth it. But then the inside of the house, we shot a lot of the stuff inside the house, but it wasn't dressed like that. It was, all of that stuff that's in the house. That's our production designer, David Crank, who's amazing, and our set decorator, David Schlesinger. He is the guy who found everything inside that house, all the crazy little robots and sculptures and like the knife sculpture and like all the artwork. Schlesinger's amazing. I gave him the reference of one of my favorite movies, the 1970s version of Sleuth with Michael Caine and Laurence Olivier, and which is also largely takes place in a mansion owned by an eccentric mystery writer and is just filled with his obsessions. And so yeah, David went off on that. Yeah.
I know that I think Chris Evans kept some of his sweaters. Bless him. Are you someone that likes to like keep a piece of one of your?
I'll steal anything I can, man. They got to keep their eyes on. My pockets were jangling as I was walking out of the wrap. No, I really wanted that knife sculpture.
Who wouldn't?
But half the knives were rented, and so we had to give them back at the end of the shoot.
That's sad.
Yeah, I don't know where you rent knives from, but.
No.
It's possible they were lying to me. It's possible. Yeah.
Maybe the studio can get us a replica.
We'll
something like that.
I don't know.
I know that you kind of, obviously, I think a lot of the actors, as I've read, have spoken obviously very highly of Rian's writing. Very tight script and everything. Are there any sort of happy accidents from improv when you kind of or when do you allow kind of the actors to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to, even though it is very like a jigsaw puzzle. I love keeping it open to kind of accidents, and especially when all the families started arguing with each other. That's when they could all just like cut loose. And the VIP of like improvised argument lines that you would never expect was the funniest one of all of them was Michael Shannon. And I think the funniest lines in the whole thing are Shannonisms. At some point he had the line when Chris Evans is telling everyone to eat shit. Michael shouts, "I'm not eating one iota of shit," and I just lost it. That was him. He just went up and started shoving the cookies in Chris's mouth and saying, "How about some more cookies, Hugh? Maybe Harlan left you a cold glass of milk in his will, asshole." Which we just... Michael Shannon is like a comedy genius, and you would never expect it because he can be so intense. Like, maybe that's what makes it funnier. I don't know.
I like it. Is there? I know you said you like pretty tight and like you kept everything in. Are there some things that you can't wait to have like on a special?
There's a couple of really we didn't cut out a ton from the movie. There are two really good scenes that we'll include. We won't add them back in, but we'll include them as like extras. But there are a couple. There's one really good scene with Toni Collette's character and with Joni and Daniel, where it was just another scene that was kind of supposed to show that he knew that her company was broke. And he talks about how we set up earlier, like that he has a rash. And LaKeith is like, "Oh, you got a bad rash there." He goes, "Oh, that's interesting." And then like 20 minutes later, he has a scene with Joni where he talks about how he he went on her Flam website and ordered the snail jelly moisturizer.
Oh, yeah.
And got a horrible rash from it. And then he went on beauty message boards and found out everyone was getting rashes, and that's how he knew her company was broke. And he ends it with walking out and saying, I hope and I pray you didn't do anything rash." And it was so really bad, but he sold it. I kind of loved it.
Oh yes, we must see that now. I think one of the great things about us is this movie is so rewatchable. I mean, I can't wait to have it and like obviously watch the Doughnut Home monologue a million times. But are there little things that you're willing to share, like little Easter eggs that kind of are enhanced?
There's a couple of fun. Did anyone catch Joseph Gordon-Levitt's cameo in it?
I just heard it. I just saw him tweet about it.
Yeah, it was so Joe's like been a good friend of mine since we made our first movie together, Brick, and he has been in some way in every one of my movies. He was an alien voice in Star Wars. In this, he is the cop on the iPad at the beginning who's like, "We have the nanny cam footage." That's Joe Gordon-Levitt.
Wow.
What else did we get in there? Ricky Jay. Do you guys know who Ricky Jay is? Yeah, Ricky Jay was one of the great sleight of hand magicians of all time. He was a dear friend of mine. He was also a scholar of con men, and he was Ben David Mamet's films. He did the opening narration for Magnolia. I met him because he did the opening narration for The Brothers Bloom, a movie I made. He passed away right before we made the movie, but he was supposed to play the part that Emmett Walsh played of the security guard in this. And so if you look in that security shack, we kind of photoshopped a picture of Ricky as the old groundskeeper with like a rifle and a dog, and it's stuck to the fridge with a magnet. So you can spot Ricky Jay in the movie.
That's lovely. I'm reminded that I feel like Don Johnson is a kind of subtle standout. What I love about all the actors too in this, I think, is that everyone's playing they're all bonkers, but so subtly, and I feel like that's the talent to obviously your direction and their abilities. Was there something that surprised you or pleasantly surprised you about Mr. Johnson?
Well, Don Johnson. What can one say? It was.
Wow, that's so great.
It was. No, he was funny. He kind of immediately got it, and he kind of played it the same way that the dude is kind of always slightly high. Don Johnson always has. As his character in the movie always has a country club buzz, I think he called it. So Don was hilarious. But all the actors, you're right. That's the balance with the film is how to go as big as possible, but because it's not a parody, because it is still have to work as a movie, having it still not leave the planet Earth, and you need really good actors in order to do that.
Yeah, it's so fun to watch. Frank Oz, I think I would love for you to talk about, because I'm not used to seeing his face, right? Because I think we know of him as such a creative genius. But how did he come to be?
So I became friends with Frank when we were doing the Yoda scene in The Last Jedi, and we stayed close.
Well, just pause. Can you get that sentence?
I know.
As
I was saying
that.
that.
Last Jedi, as you do.
yeah. Just an all-time thing. What can you say? Yeah. And Frank is also the loveliest guy in the world. And besides being obviously Yoda and Miss Piggy and having been there from the start with the Muppets, Frank is also an incredible director. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is one of the best con men movies of all times. Little Shop of Horrors, I think, is one of the all-time great musical adaptations. to be friends with Frank, I just is something I value so much in life. And I asked him. He also, I grew up watching him pop up in these little roles in like the Blues Brothers, and when I was a kid. So I thought, oh, Frank, come on down. You'll play the lawyer. It'll be fun. And I didn't realize until he got on set how generous and gracious he was in agreeing to do it, because I realized he really doesn't enjoy doing it. And yeah, I don't think he loves being on camera without a puppet,
Sure.
And but he was so sweet. I thought he did a really good job, and it just makes me really, really happy to have Frank Oz in the movie.
Yeah. That's got to be the coolest thing. I can talk for days and ask a ton of questions. Do you guys have some questions you want to ask? I saw you first. Go for it. There's a question about the execution of the serums and the wrong medication.
So she didn't know that she gave him the right stuff. She just subconsciously, through doing it 1,000 times, grabbed the right things and injected him without even thinking, and then looked at the labels and realized she had given him the wrong stuff. Because remember, the liquid was in the wrong vials. So every single piece. So she absolutely looked at the labels and she subconsciously did it just through muscle memory without thinking. And then the actual evidence in front of her eyes is that she had just given him 100 milligrams of morphine. So she reacted to that. Does that make sense?
But she could see that it wasn't that.
Yeah, she couldn't, because remember, Ransom switched the liquids in the tube. So she had literally given him from the wrong vial. You'll have to see it a second time, I guess. That's so big. No, I appreciate the question. I know and that part of it was something that I just tried to work over and over to try and get it as simple as possible. And I know it's still not that simple, so I appreciate you flowing with it.
It's good to have to think about it. Yes.
Yeah, the question is about Parasite, which is an incredible movie. If anyone here hasn't seen Parasite, it's the movie of the year. It's amazing. And about how that movie also kind of looked at issues of class and how and why this one does as well. Yeah, this is something that, I'd been thinking about this movie for about 10 years. I'd had the basic idea about 10 years ago. And so, and there's something about the murder mystery genre that is uniquely suited to looking at class. If you look at Agatha Christie's work, if you look at Gosford Park, which is a great example of that, I think because the murder mystery, by its very nature, it creates a little microcosm of society, this contained group, and then through all the suspects, you're getting a cross-section of that society from the high to the low, and then investigating their relationship with the top of the power pyramid. And so because of that, it's something that by its very structure and nature is ideally suited to investigating class. Now, what's interesting to me is the whodunit is usually done in the context of a period piece, because it's usually an Agatha Christie thing, so it's usually disconnected from our present time, and B, it's usually in Britain, because again, it's usually an Agatha Christie adaptation. And we as Americans kind of can be a little haughty and think, oh, those British with their upstairs, downstairs nonsense. And so the idea of taking this thing that was a great X-ray machine of that stuff and applying it to America in 2018 seemed like that could, in addition to being very entertaining, also kind of yield some interesting things. So.
Yeah. I was going to go back. Yes, you, sir. Gray sweatshirt. That's a good question. The question about Harlan knowing that he was getting the right and wrong drug.
Yeah, so Harlan has so this is how, in my mind, this is how it works. And to me, this makes sense. And it may or may not, you may or may not buy this. But for me, Harlan has just been told by his nurse and shown the vials and shown, I just injected you 100 milligrams of this, which is morphine. And and she describes the symptoms to him of what is about to happen to his body. Now, I don't know about you, but with me, and I think it's a very human reaction, if you're told that and you're told all those things, you're going to start feeling those symptoms. Almost like when you look at make the mistake of looking at WebMD when you have like a little pain in your side and you're like, oh my God, I'm dying of Legionnaire's disease or something, So in my mind, because it's such a quick, concentrated amount of time, because it's so stressful and because he's just had all this laid out, it's hard to see, but we did give him a ton of sweat by the end of it. And we kind of I figured he in his mind does not know that he has not gotten the right dose. He's going to be, at the very least, feeling those things. That's my answer. I'm sticking to it. Thank you.
Sure, right in front.
It's a really good question. It's about the tone and how the tone of the movie came about. And for me, the thing I was kind of aiming for, I talked before about how I didn't want it to be a parody. I love Clue, I love Murder by Death, but I didn't want it to slip into being a parody of a whodunit. To me, the sweet spot was some of my favorite whodunit films are the ones where Peter Ustinov played Poirot. So Death on the Nile, Evil Under the Sun from the late 70s and early 80s. And those movies were big fun entertainments. They were kind of cheeky and self-aware, but they never tipped entirely into comedy. So that was what I was going for. I don't think it was actually it's hard to communicate that on the page. And that was the first question I always had to answer when people read the script is tonally, where does this land? And it was something I just had to say what I just said to you guys, to the actors, and then on set we had to kind of find it. And what I mentioned before about really good actors being able to bring things up bigger than you would think and still have them feel connected as characters, that's where that comes into play. The what's that? Yeah, in post too. Yeah, finding all the rhythm and all of it. Yeah, and the music and all of it. Yeah, it all adds in.
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask one. Which scene was the most difficult or longest? What sequence took the longest to shoot?
Well, the scene between Marta and Harlan, the essential one, because we were in such a small space, that took a little while to do. Yeah, that was probably the most intricate, and also that's one where, in the middle of what's been a very arch movie, we have to land, or they have to land. It's really on them. A very incredibly emotionally impactful scene, or the whole thing doesn't work. So that's the one we're kind of focused on the most, I think. Yeah.
So a couple days? How long?
Yeah, no, that was near. Oh God, we were probably in that room for the entire thing. It's a very long scene. Also, it was probably nearly a week, I think. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
We faked this poor guy out earlier.
Oh, yes.
Let's go to him. Yeah.
Star Wars is stressful?
It was, yeah, the question is, was it going from a big production of Star Wars to something like this? The answer, I mean, it's weird to say. It didn't feel like, oh my God, thank God I'm out of that big machine and back into something real. It did not feel that connection did not feel like that at all. It was nice to move faster, It was nice to just because Star Wars was literally 4 years of process, soup to nuts, whereas this we got done literally all in 1 year. So that felt good, but I don't know, Star Wars, I think I had a really blessed experience making the Star Wars movie I made. I had a really beautiful experience making it. It is in some ways a big machine, but it's also something where at the heart of it, when you're doing the real work, it is very intimate and personal, and it's not very different from doing any other kind of movie. You're still just trying to make the scene land with the actors and trying to tell your story. So it's less different than you would think, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
That sounds good. I want to go way back. I see the white long sleeve shirt. Yes.
Yeah, Christie, did everyone hear the question? Just kind of what did I read? What research did I do? Because I grew up reading Agatha Christie, because I'm just a whodunit junkie also, I didn't have to go and do any real specific research for this. It was more about just kind of, I don't know, just kind of figuring out, just thinking about the big soup in my head of all that stuff that I love and figuring out, trying to boil down to its essence what the stuff is I love about it and figure out how to really get that on the screen. So it was less about digging into specific sources and doing research and more about just kind of investigating my own lifetime love of the genre and trying to kind of boil that down to its essence, I guess. We did some research with a home nurse, with a caregiver, and I did some cop research with this also to make sure we weren't being absolutely silly in how the detective and trooper interacted with the case. But in terms of whodunits, though, yeah. And Christie is the big one for me. I love Dorothy Sayre. I love John Dixon Carr. But for me, Christie is the one I started with.
Fun. Would you ever do an Agatha Christie adaptation?
I don't know. It's really fun just making them up. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I love the Brano one, actually. I'm really looking forward to Death on the Nile. I like to. Yeah, it's going to be, it's such a good story. It's going to be great. But everyone go see the Ustinov before that one. Or I don't know. Is that an asshole thing to say before the next one comes out? Because I love the Ustinov one so much. I'm sure Brano's will be different and great also, but yeah.
Yeah, we should all see the classic greats, yes? Yeah. Someone else back. Yes, you, sir.
Yeah.
Question was, what genres should he explore next, or does he want to explore next?
Yeah, I keep talking to my composer about doing a musical. How much fun that would be, right? That'd be fun.
Yes.
Yeah. You do it? Yeah.
Sold.
All right.
Sold,
All right,
yeah.
let's do it. All right. Well,
That's easy.
in fact, I have a crazy idea for a musical. I guess I can pitch it here. So I was saying.
Yes.
I was thinking of doing, this is going to be wild though. I was thinking of doing a musical adaptation of Andrew Lloyd Webber's musical Cats. I've kind of had my head in a hole for the past year, so I haven't really come up and really thought about how the market would take it, but
Well,
I'm excited to...
I don't know how to tell you this.
What?
But
What's this?
there is an interesting film.
Breaking my
approaching.
heart. I'm so excited for Cats.
I would actually. Are you really?
I actually kind of am.
I mean, that's incredible.
I was...
Yeah, that's incredible.
I saw Cats when I was like 18 and on Broadway, and it was like late in the run of Cats, and those cats were so bored on stage. Those cats didn't give a fuck, man. I can't wait. Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the things that I respect so much about Rian Johnson in general is like you're such a supporter and cheerleader for film in general, and I think following Rian on Twitter, if you don't already, is such a joy because. I mean, I'm a reporter. I should know all this stuff, but I feel like I learned from Rian just because his enthusiasm is so infectious. So please follow him on Twitter because he doesn't only promote his own stuff, even though he totally could.
I really try not to, and I apologize to anyone that follows me that the past 2 months I've been just squawking about this all the time. I know it's kind of annoying, but yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I love, and there's so many good movies out right now. I'm so happy you mentioned Parasite. But The Lighthouse is amazing. If anyone has seen The Lighthouse. Oh my God. Uncut Gems, which is coming out in Christmas. If anyone saw Good Times, the Safdie brothers' last movie, and you dug it, Uncut Gems is amazing. It's a good season right now, man. It's good.
It's been a good year.
A Hidden Life, yeah. I haven't seen. I was at the Malik.
Yeah, it is.
Is it in theaters right now? It's kind of okay. All right.
3 hours and 20 minutes.
Okay. I cannot wait. Have you seen it?
No.
Okay. All right. I can't wait. And we always, my wife and I, we always see his. You have to see him in the theater. You got it. So yeah, I'm excited to get out and see it. Which one? Atlantics. Yeah, my wife was just telling me we got to see that too. Atlantics. Yeah.
That's good. We got so much to watch.
I know. So much good stuff.
Is anyone? I'll go far right. Yes. Plaid. Yes. Oh, great question about the music.
Yeah, so Nathan Johnson, who did the score for this, we've been working together since Brick. We've been working together since we were 10 years old. He's my cousin. Been making movies together since we were kids, and this is his. I'm so proud of Nathan's work, and that this is his first orchestral score. This is his first time working with an orchestra, and we had so much fun. We went out to Abbey Road to record it, and we were such nerds. We were just like, dude, just and you record it with like 2 microphones like that they've had there forever that they call Paul and John, the microphones, and like the piano that they from Day in the Life is like they're in the studio. Or they tell you it's the piano from Day to the Life. They could tell us anything probably, but anyway, Nathan and I, he's one of the very first people I show any script to. With this, we have been talking about this movie for the past 10 years, and just a really collaborative, deep relationship. And he's more like a brother than a cousin to me, really. Yeah.
Is there ever an extra ask to do like an orchestral score, or does it totally depend on your composer and budgets and whatnot?
No, yeah, it depends. Do you mean like, does it cost more to do?
Yeah, like does the studio ever balk it? No, we can't afford an orchestra.
No, I mean we something like Brick we couldn't afford. We just couldn't afford an orchestra. I mean he was literally getting cheese graters from the local Tesco in London and playing them with mallets and stuff. But no, there's something like this, especially where the scope of it like requires it. It was we could afford violins. Yeah.
Thank goodness. I don't know who else to choose. How about the person who's waving their hand wildly way in the back? Floral print, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey.
Did you have a set idea as to what Marta does with the will, or did you purposely leave that as is?
That's a good question about the will.
I have my theories. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's a little more fun just leaving it to everybody's imagination what she does, I think, But I have my idea of what it would. She's Marta, What do you think she's going to do? Yeah, keep everything, maybe. Kind of hope so.
Keep everything and then like help other people that actually deserve.
Oh, I like that idea.
Right.
You see?
That's
there
Marta.
you go.
She would do that.
There's our
She's so
post-credit scene.
nice. Yeah. Who else? Who'd you just? Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah, he was asked about Cowboy Bebop, which is a thing that I deeply love, and was an influence on Brick and on Looper. And asked whether there was any of that in this. God, no, not really. I'm sure. Yeah, if there is, if you spot any, let me know because stuff works its way in there. But no, yeah, no. I'm so curious where they're making a show out of it now, right? Are they doing a new show? I'm so curious to see that. Yeah, we said it. But yeah, no, not really. I'm happy to be another fellow Bebop fan though.
Are there ever like things that you intentionally sneak in from other films, aside from actors that you've enjoyed working with?
Once in a while, yeah. And with this, the set is so dense. There's like other stuff that we were able to like slip in a little bit here and there. But yeah, once in a while you sneak stuff in there. You don't want to get too cheeky with it. That would be telling.
It's a good salesman. We have to see it 3 times, more than 2. Yes.
With that like incredible cast that you had, having them all together at once, like what was that? What was the set like? What was that experience like? What was the energy like?
Yeah, having all the cast there together at once, especially during the will reading scene and the argument scene, it was so much. Those were the best days on set, and again, everyone. It was. I was so nervous going on set because all of those actors, all those names, you're just like, is this going to be like a movie star ego nightmare thing? And it was the opposite. Everyone checked their egos out there. Everyone was just lovely, and everyone enjoyed each other's work. That's the fun thing about those scenes is they're mostly listening to each other, and. They were a blast, man. Yeah, everyone just kind of feeding off of each other. Yeah, I think you can tell. It's one of the things I'm happy with. I think you can tell how much fun we were having. That's a genuine reflection of what it was like on the set. Yeah.
I read that everyone would hang out kind of downstairs in the rec room.
Yeah.
Is there anything you're willing to share of like the story swapping that went around, like
So-
someone telling a great?
Yeah, I mean, they would literally all sit around and tell war stories down there. But the thing is, every time I would try and sneak down, as I came down the stairs, I could hear the conversation getting 20% less interesting as I approached. So I don't think I got any of the good stuff. I probably should have like left my phone recording down there at some point, but I didn't. I'm not that nefarious. Yeah.
I definitely feel like Jamie Lee Curtis and Don Johnson have like stories.
They got some
to
stories,
share.
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
They've seen some shit.
We'll have to do it on the campaign trail. Yes, sir.
I was just wondering how you rehearse. Do you just do a table read and then shoot?
Yeah, rehearsal. I don't do table reads. I've done one in my life for Brick, and it was such a disaster that we almost didn't make the movie. And so I know there are directors who really find value in that. I feel like I just have never found a way to do a table read where it's helpful for me, I guess. And with this, unfortunately, because it came together so fast in all the actors' schedules, we really didn't have rehearsal with most of them either. So for most of the actors, they were showing up day one, and we were just jumping into it, which is not ideal, especially for something like this. But the actors are so good that I found they clicked into it very quick. And so it's, again, I love to rehearse when I can. Sometimes you just don't have the luxury, and this was one of those cases.
Nice. Couple more. Yeah, right in front. Question about pacing while shooting and how he maintains it.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. Yeah, you have to. Yeah, you're thinking about pacing while you're shooting, absolutely. And generally, you're asking the actors to go faster. It's a general thing, but not always. Sometimes it is letting them know you can take a moment with this, or letting them know. It's for me, it's because there are kind of 2 levels of pacing. There's the within the scene pacing, but then the comedic pacing of it, that you're paying attention to on set to a large degree. And the litmus test is really just you kind of have to be be the most objective audience you can be for them, And I find I've spent just a lot of time, if I'm biting my hand trying not to ruin the take behind the monitor, then that's a good sign. But yeah, it is something where you have to be conscious of it on set, and then anyone here who's an editor knows how much work then goes in the edit room of really dialing it in. But on set, you just try and be as conscious of it as you can.
Fun. I got the rap signal, guys. I was going to go way back. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, and one more.
I know she's dying down there.
Okay, boom.
Hey, I'm always just curious and interested to hear what scene did you film first, last, kind of where did you wrap up? I'm sure not at the very end.
Yeah, we hopped all around with the filming. I'm trying to think. Ram, do you remember what the first scene we shot was? It was, oh my God, that's a very good question. You know what? I think it was the exterior. I think it was when Marta shows up at the house and Meg is there and Katherine is there and they have their first scene. So that might have been one of the very first scenes we shot. The very last scene we shot, Ram, again, help me out. No, it's such a blur. The thing is, with the last thing you shoot, any of you that make movies, you know this, it's never anything cool or dramatic. It's usually like a shot of keys being put down or something. It's something you've forgotten and pushed. We'll get that. And finally you're doing a shot of like eggs being stirred or something like that. So it was probably a stupid insert that there was nothing to really talk about. Yeah.
That's nice. Okay, yes.
Yeah. The country is Marta.
What country is Marta from is the question.
You're going to have to ask the Thrombeys because they know. They're the close to her. Yeah. Also, I so respect that you watched the whole movie from the front all the way in the side. I feel like you deserve a round of applause for that. I can't imagine what that was like. Yeah. And you too, over here. You guys too.
You want to toss
And yeah, lesson.
How do you do what Ryan does is the question. A very good one.
Advice for just kind of upcoming filmmaking. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure if I had asked that question when I was starting out and gotten the answer I'm about to give, I would be frustrated probably. So I apologize in advance. But the only advice that I think is actually worth a damn is to not get your head wrapped up in how do I break in? How do I make a career? What do I do to get an agent? What do I do to get into the industry? That really is putting the cart before the horse. I really believe that your only job is to work on your voice and to work on just make as many movies as you can. Don't get precious. Don't worry about making them look professional. Don't worry about shooting with great equipment. Don't worry about any of that. Shoot with your phone. Use your friends as actors. Anything you do, just make them, and develop, get better and better at telling a story with a camera, and figuring out what you want to say, figuring out what it is, filling up that well that you're going to be drawing from, where the real stuff is, which is, life and experience and your relationships and all of that stuff, And I really believe that, like, if you develop that and you get to the point where you're making interesting stuff and putting it out there, nothing's, who knows, nothing's guaranteed, but that's the stuff that then attracts the industry to you in some shape or form, and you can't really, I don't know, in that way, it's in any way, it's uniquely unhelpful to think about like being a sniper and targeting, I'm going to do this and that'll get my career going, because it's so wacky, and everyone's story is different, and you can never predict how you're going to actually break in. So, yeah, I don't know. That's my kind of probably unuseful, but ultimately really useful advice. Just work, just make stuff, man, and keep making it. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, we got our time cut, but thank you guys so much.
Guys, thanks for
around.
coming. Thank you so much.
Great questions.